Lightning split the dark sky. Rain slammed down like metal falling from above. The coastal base dissolved into chaos. Gunfire echoed, smoke twisting into the storm. A Navy SEAL shook, his voice breaking. "We're finished already, no chance at all." In the pounding rain, troops crouched together, hope bleeding out like water in mud. Then a figure appeared in the bunker's shadowed window. Slim hands settled on a Barrett 50, its black steel flashing under lightning's glare. The shape vanished as quickly as it had come. In that storm of fire, a single shot cut through the madness and shifted everything. But where did it come from, if I'm... Staff Sergeant Elena Torres disappears into every place she walks, 5'4", maybe 120 pounds, soaked to the skin. Dark hair wound in a regulation bun so tight it nearly vanishes. Most troops stroll by without a glance. She works logistics, warehouse tallies, ammo stock. She's the unseen engine that makes war turn. In the mess, she sits alone at a corner table, chewing cold rice and dried beef strips. Her every move is sharp, measured, like the rest of her. At the next table, Marines laugh over steaks, voices echoing across the hall. "Hey, warehouse girl," Corporal Harris calls with a grin. "How's the pencil pushing today?" His buddy smirks. Bet that Barrett she lugs around is just for looks, probably never fired it once. Sniper girl, another jeers, more like supply clerk with pricey toys. Elena doesn't raise her eyes. She's heard it all before. The nickname began as a joke when someone noticed the Barrett 50 she'd been issued in a supply check, a gun far too massive for someone her size. The joke stayed, though none of them knew her truth. Growing up in the barrios of Santa Rosa, where the border cut through streets like a scar, Elena learned fast that survival often meant being overlooked. Her father, a maintenance man and two-tour Vietnam vet, spent weekends teaching her to shoot beer cans with his old rifle. "Mija," he'd tell her, weathered hands steadying hers on the stock. "Never let anyone else define your worth. Prove it with action, not words." That teaching stayed through boot camp, through advanced logistics, through every posting where she was the only female, the youngest, the quiet one. She soaked up knowledge like a sponge. Wind patterns, humidity, ballistics that others memorized just to pass tests, but she held like gospel. Her worn leather notebook holds hundreds of entries. Wind speeds at different hours, how rainfall shifts bullet flight. The way sound carries across sand compared to concrete. Notes not made for grades or rank, but with the quiet belief that one day a life might hinge on accuracy. The Barrett 50 she was assigned weighs 30 pounds empty. In her small hands, the massive rifle looks more like a stage prop, as if a child were pretending to be a soldier. She keeps it spotless, stripping it down and rebuilding it each night before sleep. The habit soothes her. The weight, the scent of gun oil, a ritual that ties her to something greater than herself. Her barracks room reveals a life prepared for a test that might never arrive. Shooting guides lie dog-eared and scribbled with notes. Weather apps glow on her phone. A small telescope waits by the window, used to study distant markers in quiet hours. She calculates ranges no one expects she'll ever use. "Just you and me," she whispers to the rifle, fingertips tracing its steel. It's the nearest thing to a friend she has here, where strength is counted in bench press totals and loud voices. To others, she's simply warehouse duty, a clerk logging bullets, not firing them. A quiet woman who avoids their drinking sessions, who has no tales from combat, who never fits their picture of a fighter. But Elena sees another world. She notes every firing angle from each window on base, knows the distance to every possible shot, memorizes patrol schedules, their weak spots, and the blind corners where one bullet could decide everything. As storm clouds roll toward the shore tonight, She sits at her desk, polishing the Barrett yet again. Outside, lightning cuts the sky, and she's already timing thunder gaps, gauging wind shifts as the storm draws close. Are you watching this from somewhere safe? Or have you felt what it's like to be dismissed? Drop your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe to Major Tom's Tales so we can keep this story alive together. The storm slams into the base at 03 for 7 hours, turning the night into a whirlpool of wind and rain. But weather isn't their worst enemy. 300 rebels, armed and organized, surge from the jungle like a living wave. The intel was wrong. This wasn't a stray insurgent group. It was an army waiting for its moment. The first blasts shake the foundation of the compound. Windows burst inward, shards mixing with rain, as automatic fire erupts from the trees. Gun flashes strobe through the dark like lethal fireflies. AKs hammering their deadly rhythm. Contact, contact. We're under heavy fire on the south wall. The radio spits panic, then cuts to static. Lightning reveals faces striped with mud and fury as the rebels advance in drilled formations, their cries merging with thunder. Inside the barracks, SEALs scramble into defense. They're America's best, trained for the impossible, but numbers tell the truth. 12 men against hundreds, pinned down with their air support, grounded. Petty Officer Alvarez clutches his shoulder, shrapnel carving a crimson canyon. Radio's gone, commands out of reach. Senior Chief Morgan, a hardened veteran with 20 years behind him, peers through rain-streaked glass. Ammo's nearly gone. At this pace, we'll be hurling rocks in 10 minutes. Another SEAL, barely 19 on his first tour, crouches behind an overturned table. His hands tremble as he slams rounds into his M4, muscle memory wrestling with raw fear. A photo of his girlfriend slips from his pocket, landing face down in the muddy water. "We're finished," he shouts above the gunfire. We don't stand a chance. The surge floods the lower decks. Black seawater climbs past their ankles, then their knees. Power flickers, sparks fly, and darkness swallows half the compound. The backup generators sputter once, twice, then drown in the rising flood. Outside, a Blackhawk claws at the wind, the pilot battling to hold her steady. The craft dips sideways, caught by a gust, then rights itself for a moment. Hope flickers in the SEAL's eyes. Rescue, escape, a lifeline. An RPG rips through the storm like a flaming spear. The helicopter detonates in a fireball that turns night to day. Burning fuel rains down, sizzling as it strikes the flooded ground. The wreck crashes through the comms tower, cutting their final link to the outside. "No backup coming," Morgan says flatly, his voice deadened. "We fight here, or we die here." Rebels press in closer. Through sheets of rain, the SEALs see faces now, old and young, driven by rage and the scent of victory. They advance block by block, room to room, their numbers soaking up losses that would cripple a smaller force. A mortar slams into the courtyard, shrapnel spraying. One SEAL screams as concrete tears into his leg. Another's rifle jams, water flooding its chamber, leaving him struggling while enemies rush forward. Each minute, the perimeter shrinks. What began as a fortified base twists into a kill box, Americans trapped at its core. The storm that should hide them now betrays them, blinding their sight and smothering accurate fire. In Building C, Elena Torres crouches in her storage bunker. Crates of ammo surround her, but she can't move it out fast enough. The Barrett rests heavy across her lap, both familiar and alien in this hour of dread. Drops leak through the ceiling, each one ticking like a clock counting down. Through the slit window, she watches her comrades, her protectors, her brothers, fighting against odds no one could beat. Her notebook lies open, pages soaked yet still legible. Wind gusts 40 knots, visibility near zero, enemy range 4 to 800 meters. But all the math means nothing without courage to act. The stomp of boots in water grows closer. Rebel voices echo. Rapid Spanish she understands with ease. They're clearing buildings, killing the wounded, sparing no one. A young SEAL's cry cuts through the chaos, high and raw with desperation. Is anyone still breathing? Anyone? Elena's hands steady at last. She shuts her notebook and raises the Barrett, the weight settling into her shoulder like an old companion. Through the scope, she sees chaos, flashes, shapes sprinting, her brothers bleeding in the mud. Yet she notices more than chaos, patterns inside the storm. Targets appear in rhythm, distances she's run countless times in drills, now demanding flawlessness when flawless aim means life or death. The storm howls, lightning rips the night, and in that hidden bunker, unseen by both sides, Staff Sergeant Elena Torres inhales her first calm breath since it began. The bolt locks forward with a sound like fate snapping shut. Elena adjusts her scope with steady fingers, muscle memory guiding where thought falls short. Rain pounds the walls, but in her mind silence rules. Every weekend with her father, every training hour, every night poring over tables, all of it sharpens to this instant. Through her glass the world shrinks into equations. Wind 35 knots from the northeast. Heavy rain bends the path, 2 inches off at 600 meters. Target, enemy sniper in a bell tower, 743 meters out, lining up on a wounded SEAL crawling for cover. She exhales slow, heart steady, sliding into the quiet gap between beats. The first shot cracks through the storm like thunder answering lightning. The sniper's rifle spins from his grasp as he falls into darkness. For a frozen second, the field holds still, only rain pattering on steel and stone. Even the storm hesitates, waiting. Where the hell did that come from? Morgan's voice cuts through, his eyes scanning for the unseen savior. The rebels rally fast, but ripples of doubt spread. They'd charted every defense, tallied every rifle, prepared for each plan. Except this, a phantom shooter striking with the surgeon's precision and death's patience. Elena's second round catches the RPG crew ready to finish the helicopter's fate. The gunner folds, his launcher clattering useless into the flood, its warhead spinning harmlessly away. The blast lights the compound with cruel clarity, rebels scattered like chess pieces under a new player's hand. Sniper, unknown sniper, the shout echoes from both armies. The SEALs search with hope, the rebels with dread. Through her lens, Elena finds their commander, a scarred man barking orders behind a wrecked truck. He's clever, shifting cover, always moving, but clever fails against math. She leads him by 18 inches, correcting for drift, rain drag, and the slope of her perch. The third round cuts down their commander. Chaos erupts, the rebel push crumbling into disarray. Without orders, their sheer numbers twist into weakness. Small groups surge forward with no cover, retreat without command, firing at shadows while unseen threats pick them apart. Alvarez fumbles to reload with one arm, blood pouring from his shoulder. A rebel turns the corner, AK raised, a grin spreading as he spots the helpless SEAL. Elena's fourth shot wipes the smile, and the man away. "Jesus Christ," whispers young Dawson, still clutching his soaked photo. Someone's out there, someone's stalking them. The Barrett roars again, its 50 cal voice rolling through the storm like divine judgment. Each flash hides in lightning, every shot buried under thunder's cover. She becomes a phantom in war's machinery, untouchable, relentless. A rebel MG team positions inside the pharmacy, their weapon aimed squarely at Morgan's squad pinned in the courtyard. They move with calm precision. These aren't amateurs. They're hardened fighters. The belt feeds cleanly as they ready to crush resistance with brute firepower. Elena shifts inside the bunker, finding a sliver through concrete barely wider than her scope. The shot's impossible. 550 meters across a storm winds, at a target half shielded by sandbags, through a gap no larger than a paperback. Physics says no. Her father's voice whispers across years, "Mija, never let anyone else decide what can't be done." The fifth round proves physics a liar. The gun team falls silent, their crew scattered like leaves in rain. Morgan's men seize the pause, pressing forward, their movements guided by hope instead of despair. They claw back ground they thought was gone. "Whoever you are," Morgan yells into the storm, "keep firing, we're moving." But the enemy isn't finished. A patient rebel sniper, disciplined and sharp, has tracked her bursts, plotting distances by lightning flashes. He fixes on what he believes is her nest, settling in with steady hands and cold eyes. Elena spots him through her glass. A careful marksman, steady and skilled. He's good, maybe better than most. Normally, it would be a duel of equals. But nothing about this night is normal. She isn't only fighting for herself, or even the mission. In her mind, Elena pictures the young SEAL's photo sinking in muddy water. Alvarez bleeding heavily. Morgan's worn face set like stone. She remembers her father's hands guiding hers on that old rifle, teaching that precision wasn't only hitting a mark. It was about guarding what mattered most. The sixth round cuts through 612 meters of storm, threading between pillars with inches to spare, slicing through rain and wind with flawless certainty. It drops the counter-sniper before his finger can twitch on the trigger. The rebel push crashes like surf against rock. Without leaders, heavy weapons, or the aura of unstoppable force, they begin to fall back. Not in panic, but with the grim understanding they can't win this fight. In her bunker, brass shells gleaming like tiny gold promises at her feet. Elena Torres lowers the Barrett and lets herself one fleeting moment of relief. Through the rain-streaked slit, she sees Americans pressing forward, reclaiming buildings one at a time. But she doesn't step out, doesn't shout her name, doesn't seek praise. Instead, she strips the rifle, wiping it clean, preparing for the next time someone decides her people are expendable. Dawn bleeds gray and heavy across the compound. The storm rolls inland, leaving puddles like mirrors of pewter sky, and the scattered remains of what should have been a massacre. Steam curls from concrete still hot with gunpowder. Alvarez sits against a wall as a medic wraps his shoulder, his eyes scanning the grounds. Not for enemies now, but for answers. 6 shots, maybe 7, he mutters. Each flawless. Who shoots like that? Young Dawson from Ohio grips a photo, somehow salvaged from the mud, of the girl waiting back home. Rainwater runs with his tears, but they aren't from fear anymore. Someone saved me last night, someone I never saw, never heard, except that rifle singing. He glances to Morgan, who studies the wreckage with a veteran's gaze. "Chief, we need to find them, buy them a drink, hell, buy them a car." Morgan nods slowly, weathered face creased with awe. 2 decades, 3 wars, endless firefights, and he's never seen anything like it. "Whoever that was," he says, voice steady across the yard, "they didn't just save us, they saved the mission. Without them, we'd be corpses bagged for the flight home." The hunt begins quietly. SEALs spread through the compound, searching for their ghost. They trace firing angles, question survivors, mark distances. The math adds up, 6 kills from the southern sector, likely elevated. with a clear line of sight. Building C is mostly supply and logistics, not where you'd expect to find a warrior, but the geometry works and the signs are fresh. Displaced dust, scuffs in the concrete, a clear field of fire. "Hey," calls Corporal Reed from a doorway. "Isn't this where that quiet logistics girl works?" They find her in the main warehouse, logging ammunition use with the same steady precision she applies to everything. Elena glances up from her clipboard as the group approaches, her expression calm, professional. "Ma'am," Morgan begins, then halts. Something in her stance, the way she carries herself, rings familiar. He's seen enough shooters to recognize the signs, the unshaken hands, the still eyes, the instinctive way she gauges angles even in casual talk. "Were you here last night?" he asks quietly. "During the attack?" "Yes, Chief. I secured the ammunition stores. Per protocol." Her tone is flat, but Dawson notices her boots, still muddy, stained with the red clay unique to the bunker floor. Alvarez rises slowly, testing his wounded arm. "Those shots, whoever fired them." His words trail off as he studies her face. "They saved us all. Professional grade, surgical precision, the work of someone with true training." Elena keeps writing on her clipboard, but something shifts in the room. The men around her stand differently now, their expressions altered. Where yesterday they saw a clerk buried in supply lists, today they see something else. Possibility. "Ma'am," Dawson says quietly, "I just want to thank you." She looks up, meeting his gaze for the first time. In her eyes lies no confession, no denial, only the quiet acknowledgement that some truths live unspoken. Morgan steps forward, laying a weathered hand on her shoulder. The gesture is formal, solemn, the way a seasoned NCO salutes another warrior. "From now on," he declares, his voice echoing across the warehouse, "nobody calls you warehouse girl again." The silence that follows isn't empty. It's heavy with respect, with understanding, with the realization that real heroism rarely asks for attention. It moves in shadows, content simply to know good people get to go home. Elena only nods and returns to her ledger, but the men linger, unwilling to leave. They're beginning to see that the quietest among them may also be the most dangerous. Outside, Corporal Reed spots a single shell casing, still fresh, half buried in the red clay near the bunker. He lifts it carefully, reverent, as though holding a relic, turning it to read the stamp. 50 BMG, Lake City Arsenal. "This is it," he whispers, motioning the others closer. One of hers. By itself, it's nothing more than brass and charred powder, but against the backdrop of the night before, it means far more. Tangible proof that sometimes angels carry Barrett rifles, and that salvation can come from the least expected hands. Alvarez turns the casing over in his hand, feeling its weight, still warm, or maybe only in his mind. "She was right here," he murmurs, staring out the bunker window toward the kill zones beyond, guarding us when we thought we were finished. Within hours, the story spreads past their squad. Supply clerks whisper it to mechanics. Mechanics pass it on to pilots. Pilots repeat it during briefings at other outposts. With each retelling, details grow, some accurate, others exaggerated, but all cling to one undeniable truth. When America's finest stood on the edge of annihilation, their deliverance came from someone they had all overlooked. Some call her the Barrett Angel. Others mutter about the ghost of the warehouse. But the name that sticks, the one that will trail Elena for the rest of her career, is simpler. Ace. 3 days later, Staff Sergeant Ortega, a sniper instructor out of Fort Benning, arrives to review claims of impossible marksmanship. He charts distances, crunches conditions, and interviews witnesses. His findings land in an official after-action report that becomes required reading at sniper schools. Conditions: near zero visibility. Winds gusting 40 knots. Engagements at 4 to 750 meters. Under those factors, the chance of hitting even once approaches statistical impossibility. And yet, the evidence proves 6 kills, each one requiring skill far beyond military norms. During his debrief with Morgan, Ortega sets his pen down. "Chief," he says, "in 20 years of shaping sharpshooters, I've never seen anything like this. Whoever your shooter is, they've just rewritten the standards." But Elena herself slips away from recognition, deflecting it as easily as rain sliding off polished steel. When officers arrive to draft awards, she's busy inventorying medical crates. When our reporters chase a story about a heroic clerk, she's suddenly tied up in urgent logistics meetings. She moves through the base like smoke, seen but untouchable. Her bunk tells another tale. The leather notebook now filled with new pages, wind shifts and storms, bullet behavior in extreme weather, notes on target acquisition when vision is near zero. Turning terror into data. Fear into knowledge that could save lives next time. Even the Barrett earns reverence. Sergeant Bennett, the armorer, finds it spotless and perfectly zeroed when Elena brings it for service. "This rifle," he tells his assistant, "just carved its place in history. We don't clean it, we honor it." A month later, during mail call, Dawson opens a letter from his girlfriend back home in Ohio. She's heard fragments of the story, twisted accounts of a miracle in the storm. "Kyle," she writes, "I don't know everything that happened, but I'm grateful to whoever brought you back. Someone's watching over you boys. An angel with a rifle." Dawson glances across the mess hall where Elena sits alone, eating in her usual steady rhythm while studying a technical manual on advanced ballistics. An angel, he thinks. Yeah, that fits. New arrivals to the compound now get different briefings. Orientation includes a session titled Force Multiplication Through Unexpected Assets. The point is clear, though never spelled out. Never assume you know who your most valuable people are, and never dismiss the quiet ones. Late at night, when the base drifts into silence, some swear they see a shadow slipping between buildings. Officially, it's just routine security patrols, but they know better. Their guardian angel still walks among them, rifle spotless, ready, watching over Americans who sleep because someone they once ignored chose to protect them. In Morgan's footlocker, a brass casing rests in green felt. One day he plans to mount it with an inscription. For now, it's enough to know it stands as proof that miracles can carry ballistic coefficients and muzzle velocities. Heroes don't always stand in the spotlight or pose for the cameras. Sometimes they work from the shadows, asking for nothing but the knowledge that good people live to see another dawn. Elena Torres returned to her routine the next morning, filing reports and managing stock with the same quiet care as always. Yet the way others saw her had shifted. No longer just a supply specialist, she had become a living reminder that true strength often hides where no one bothers to look. The lesson goes beyond rifles or tactics. It's about the danger of assumptions, the value of preparation, and the truth that we rarely know who might rise to greatness when the moment calls. In your own life, who have you underestimated? What quiet professionals stand near you, training for moments they hope will never come? Don't forget to subscribe to Major Tom's Tales so you don't miss our next powerful story of the human spirit. And remember, before you judge someone's worth, think carefully. The person you overlook today might be the one who saves you tomorrow, because heroes hide in plain sight, waiting for their moment to change everything.